Hey listeners, Shadows and Sightings is a paranormal comedy podcast. Though we keep things lighthearted, we understand some topics may be sensitive to some listeners. These topics include violence, gore, death, and suicide. If you have trauma related to any of these topics, express caution before listening. Thank you and enjoy the show.
The only way you can get out of this is if you eat one of the apples that you peed on.
But you can't pee on all the apples. The pea has to decide.
What the fuck does that mean?
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Shadows and Sightings, a paranormal podcast where we talk about all things spooky. I'm Taylor.
I'm Nick.
And today we're talking about the history of Halloween. Our favorite holiday. My favorite holiday.
It's my second favorite holiday.
What's your first?
Haven't figured it out yet.
You can't use that line all the time.
Oh, that's like that's the line.
It's your go-to. You can't just use that one every single time.
But I copyrighted it, so I can. I got documentation.
I don't think that's how it works.
I got documentation.
No. Let me see the documents.
I lost it. It's gone. Sealed away in a vault. But it exists.
Which vault?
It's real. Area 51.
So you sealed your documents in a top secret government lab.
I know people. I know.
Who do you know? Give me a specific first name.
Classified. Can't talk about it.
His first name's classified?
Yeah.
Classified PE.
Classified, can't talk about it. Strangest name.
That's a weird name. Is Kant his middle name, or?
Don't know that.
It's classified too.
Found him on a Facebook group for sourdough bread.
What was he doing making sourdough?
Oh, it's a perfect cover-up if you ask me.
Is that the most extraterrestrial type of bread?
Yeah, nice guy.
That didn't answer the question.
Sourdough is
You're the bread guy, so I would assume that you would know what the most alien type of bread is.
I mean, I wouldn't say, like, sourdough is like a process, because you got to grow it. You gotta foster it. The mother.
You gotta nurture it.
I don't know. It can be kind of like dramatic, though.
The bread. A little testy.
Well, it gets a little testy at times. If the conditions aren't right, doesn't yeastify or whatever. And
very technical term, yeastify.
Yeah, yeastify. No, I mean, it's a process. I haven't done it in a while. My last culture died. This has nothing to do with shadows and sightings.
What's the most Halloween bread?
Most Halloween bread? It's probably some sort of pumpkin.
Pumpkin bread?
I saw a pumpkin cream cheese brioche.
Ooh. Pumpkin cream cheese brioche.
And at that moment, I knew what it meant to have diabetes. It hit me. It was like a light bulb. I was like, oh, diabetes.
So that's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like.
After taking an insulin shot.
And no regrets.
So you didn't make it?
I didn't make it, but I have the recipe though.
What about a nice pumpkin chocolate chip muffin?
Who has? I remember eating one, but I don't remember where I got it from. And it was delicious.
Was it locally?
I want to say it was some little cafe.
Probably out in Shepherdstown
or something like that, or on a trip somewhere, when we went to Philly or something like that. They had it at a cafe in the morning there.
And a nice pumpkin chocolate chip muffin.
Oh, so good.
A little warm, right out of the oven, but 5 minutes to cool down. So the chocolate chips are still a little melted.
With a sip of coffee, that first.
Nice pumpkin spice coffee.
Oh, man. That is that's when I know fall is here. I drink a lot of coffee. I drink a lot of coffee on my front porch, but it doesn't hit the same.
Until you get a nice 55-degree
fall crisp.
Yeah.
The red leaves are blowing in the wind. You just take that nice first sip.
Long drag of coffee. That doesn't translate well to an audio podcast. You get coffee slurping sounds.
Oh, yeah. We're going to make it real weird ASMR. Here today. ASMR.
Shadows and Sightings ASMR. Bringing you the finest coffee slurping you've ever heard. But yeah, no, fall is falling outside right now. It is. This is the first time I was walking up to your doorstep and I was like, it feels like Halloween out. Like Halloween's got a very specific feeling to me. It's got a feeling. It's like a different feel. A smell, maybe, I guess. It smells like caramel apples and more diabetes. After you get diabetes the first time.
Do you remember those? I think Little Debbie makes them. The pumpkin apple. It's like the pumpkin apples.
You mean the pumpkin delights, where they're like little bread and they're filled with pumpkin filling, and they look like jack-o'-lanterns?
I thought they were filled with apples.
I don't think so.
Maybe you're right. I could have swore I had like.
They're called pumpkin delights.
Do they have apple delights?
They very well could. I don't eat Little Debbie snacks.
I haven't had Little Debbie. I don't even remember when was the last time I had a Little Debbie snack.
I think the closest I got was I tried the like Star Crunch ice cream or something. And that was the last Little Debbie's related thing that I can remember that I had. And even that was probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, it says like longer than that for me. Like Little Debbie's, or at least 2012.
Wow.
2013.
Wow. I mean, that's probably about the same for me. I don't go out of my way to buy a Little Debbie snack.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
because it's one of those things where I know that if I buy it, I'm going to regret it once it's in my house. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to be like, why did I buy these? And I'll have one, and then I'll throw the other 11 away. Because I'll just feel bad that they're in my house because I don't need the sugar and the fat and all that stuff.
We just don't.
I'm not that big on sweets, you know.
I like sweets. I just don't like pre-processed Little Debbie sweets. Yeah. Like if I'm going to invest,
like a fresh baked or fresh made.
Yeah, like a fresh baked cookie from like a cafe or something like that. Or that's my. That or we'll make something ourselves here. But
you have those little Pillsbury like ghost cookies and stuff. Like the old time. You remember those?
Which ones?
Like Pillsbury, they make the little ghost cookies and the pumpkin cookies. They're like sugar cookies. And they're like purple with little ghosts on them, or they're orange with a little pumpkin.
Don't remember those.
Really?
I'm sure if I Googled a picture of it, what are they? Like Little Debbie?
They're Pillsbury. They're Pillsbury, like just Pillsbury ghost cookies. I have some in my fridge right now. I'm waiting to make them.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. The pumpkin ones. I mean, I always had the pumpkin ones. And I was like, Oh, that's a core memory. I forgot all about those.
I bought those.
Oh yeah,
like a month ago.
Nice.
And luckily I did, because now they're gone. Because you can't find them in the store anymore. They're all gone. It's bullshit. I'm putting my flag in the sand here about putting Halloween stuff out. I love Halloween, and I like seeing the Halloween stuff come out. But I don't like it when it comes out at the end of July and it's gone in the first week of October. I cannot stand it. It's like it's October 1st and there's no more Halloween stuff and it's all Christmas stuff now. Why are we doing this? Why are we 2 months ahead?
It's very commercialized. It's very like materialistic. Not material. Like what's the capitalism? Capitalistic? No,
you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went to Hobby. You were there earlier. We went to Hobby Lobby yesterday and just Christmas stuff
everywhere.
And
it's all and then all the fall stuff's 50% off already. Which is fine, I guess, but there's none of it left. I was at Walmart earlier. All the Halloween costumes are already like 25% off. And Halloween decorations are 25% off. I'm like, usually back in my day, that stuff didn't go on sale till November 1st because they had to keep restocking it.
Amen.
Now it's on shelves for 3 months. July to September. And
Times is it changing?
I don't like it.
I'm
going to wave my old hand.
You sound like such an old man right now. This is ridiculous.
Right. I like my Halloween the way that it used to be back when we were kids.
None of this new age nonsense.
There are some good things about like modern Halloween, but putting the shit in the stores 2 months early is not one of them. Can't get on board with it.
Well, how do you feel about what's it called? Summerween?
That's different because that's like you celebrate it one day. You celebrate one day of like, and some people don't even do that, I guess, but yeah, you just watch like a Halloween movie or something just for like the halfway to Halloween thing. And it's one day. That's, it is what it is. It's 4th of July happens, and then usually like 2 weeks later, you start seeing Halloween stuff rolling out. And again, it gives me a little boost of serotonin knowing it's on its way when I see it. But then by September 30th, and I'm like, wow, all the Halloween stuff is already gone. I have to buy these cookies that I wish that I could buy, now on October 15th. So they're not sitting in my fridge for 2 months waiting for me to make them. That's where I start to get a little upset.
That's when I start writing my congressman.
Like, right to your local politicians. Tell them to just to hold off. Keep our holidays. Let them breathe a little. That's all I'm asking. Just let them breathe.
I get it.
Put the Halloween stuff out the end of August up until, Halloween's over. Give it a week after that, and then put all the Christmas shit out you want.
You're so passionate.
Welcome to come. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Welcome to Shadows and Sightings. Today we're going to talk about Halloween. All things spooky about Halloween, where it started, how it evolved, what changed, what didn't change. Kind of like us. We changed and didn't change.
It's an ongoing, ending process of growth and change.
So, where do you want to start? At the start?
I think we should start the 75th percentile.
That puts us in like 1982.
So talk about the origins. What is Halloween?
Halloween comes from the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, which I'm sure everybody at this point is familiar with. Samhain was a Celtic celebration about 2,000 years ago.
Samhain.
Good old Samhain. Yeah, if you're Dr. Loomis in Halloween too, it's pronounced Samhain. I mean, I'm sure most of our listeners are probably familiar that Ireland and Celts go hand in hand. It was also the United Kingdom and Northern France. And so Festival of Samhain was pretty much the New Year on November 1st. That's when they celebrated their New Year. Marked the end of summer and the harvest and the beginning of the dark, cold winter. The Celts believed that on the night before the New Year, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. The veil was the thinnest on November 1st and October 31st. I don't know what that hand gesture is, but yeah, that's the veil is thin on Hallows Eve. Basically, they believed that the ghosts and the dead during that time could return to Earth, and they could communicate easier with them. They could seek guidance. They could hopefully have their fortunes told by the dead loved ones, I guess is the right term. But they weren't always good. Some of these Celts believed that the spirits could come back and, destroy their crops, cause trouble, and just kind of violate the natural world, as it were.
So they literally were opening up burial mounds.
No, they were not opening up burial mounds.
Is that what it was? It wasn't that? Okay. So I thought that I'd read that that's part of the tradition is that they would do burial mounds. They would what's the word?
I think in some traditions, some people would bury their loved ones in a certain way where they could continue to visit them, like every Halloween. So you might be right somewhat, but they're not like digging people back up. Like if you have a tomb, I think they would kind of preserve the body essentially a little bit so that they could go and commune with that person. I guess until it just became too hard to upkeep. I don't know.
Sure. I'm not sure.
They did build huge sacred bonfires where people would gather to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. During the celebration, the Celts wore costumes, typically consisting of animal heads and skins, and they attempted to tell each other's fortunes. So fortune telling seems to be a pretty major through line with this celebration. They believe that the priests and medicine people and stuff like that had a easier time making predictions about the future, and they would also try to tell each other's future in the same celebration. And then once that celebration was over, they relit their hearth fires, and they relit them with the ashes or the embers from the bonfire to help protect them during the coming winters. So they would just kind of keep those fires going.
Oh, that's great. That's interesting.
Once that was over. Yeah. So that's essentially Samhain in a nutshell.
Lots of feasting, lots of
drinking,
stories
being told, ghost stories, fortunes being told, dressed up in costumes, probably making music of some sort. A big old festival.
Making contact with the Outsai, spirits or fairies. That is like the one thing that I always found interesting about Celtic mythology and Celtic folklore was, I think in that lore it's called like the Fey world or the Fey realm, which essentially is just like this plane that you can find portals to. And I think in their their culture, fairies are kind of seen as like
borderline evil.
yeah,
They're like tricksters. I think.
Almost, yeah, basically, and you know that you get enticed to like come to this portal, or whatever, by this fairy, and
then they clap your cheeks.
Maybe there's some cheek clapping. I don't know. Like, I mean, you go back through the portal though, and like a monumental amount of time has passed. So in the Fae world, it's only been like 30 minutes of cheek clapping, but then you get back to reality. It's like,
damn, you've been gone 100 years.
Yeah, and like your whole family's gone essentially, and
so is that cheek clapping worth it?
I mean, I didn't consent to it, so it was kind of.
You might not have to consent to it. Maybe it's just like brings you in, and then all of a sudden you're in a world of ecstasy and desire.
I think I'd be freaking out. Like I'd be freaking out. Like like
a Willy Wonka scenario.
Like
come with me.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, it has to be. Like you go through that portal, and it's like just you're tripping balls instantly.
When Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze starts playing in the background, your
just like,
pupils dilated.
Yeah, you're like, what is going on?
Turns tie-dye and colorful.
It was like the clouds are moving, the trees are talking,
the frogs are like playing banjos and sitars, and the mushrooms are dancing and.
Mushrooms are dancing, and
just a big trippy Beatles Yellow Submarine scenario.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think I'd be freaking out. I mean, like this is.
But maybe you don't know you're freaking out in the fairy realm.
Like it's just normal.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's expected.
Like, oh, what is this? This new reality that I'm in that I have to accept very fast. And then they start clapping cheeks. How did we get on this?
You brought it up. I don't know. Like
you brought up the fairies.
I was saying like how in the Celtic mythology, it's well with Samhain or whatever, and the veil being the thinnest, that makes you wonder if like that's like that whole crossing over into like the Fae realm or whatever. So then I always thought that costumes and stuff like that. So it originated with Samhain then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they would dress up in costumes, kind of to ward off evil spirits around the bonfires. They believed that if ghosts and ghouls and things of that nature, supernatural things, seen people dressed in costumes, they would be less inclined to come and ruin their crops and scare them and all that stuff. It was just kind of more of a way to brave the scary darkness more than anything. But they believed that the costumes helped keep the spirits away.
It's interesting, like how different cultures like around the world use the idea of like costumes and like what like the meaning behind it. Mm-hmm. Like Mexico, like Day of the Dead, it's more
Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah, it's more celebrated as like to honor and remember like deceased family members.
Right. That's where you get like the sugar skulls and all that stuff.
And it's like complete like 180 from like what Samhain is or whatever.
Yeah, they'd be dressed in animal furs and giant antlers and probably body paints not body paints per se, but probably like they would mash up beets or something and use that as paints and those like natural things.
Yep. And it seems that like a lot of these like different cultures and stuff celebrate, I think every culture has some form of like celebration to like honor their dead. Mm-hmm. And Samhain kind of just seems like it took over though, as like, or not took over, but like is like the origin for like what we have today as like Halloween, or how a lot of things kind of like came from Samhain as it kind of progressed.
Yeah, because after kind of Christianity rose in those parts and the Roman Empire rose to power, the church decided that the ancient festivals and stuff like that just were too heathenist. I don't know. Something like that. It was too barbaric, and they needed some structure. So they moved their celebration of All Saints' Day to November 1st, or All Hallows' Day. So that's how we got October 31st being All Hallows' Eve, and eventually becoming Halloween.
Nice. I have never once celebrated All Saints' Day a day in my life.
I did when the Saints won the Super Bowl.
What is All Saints' Day? Like, what is the celebration behind that?
It was the day that Pope Boniface dedicated the Pantheon in Rome in honor of all Christian martyrs. and the Catholic feast of All Martyrs' Day was established in the Western Church. Pope Gregory III later expanded the festival to include all saints as well as all martyrs and moved the observance from May 13th to November 1st. So by the 9th century, the influence of Christianity had spread into the Celtic lands where it gradually blended with and supplanted older Celtic rites. And in 1000 AD, the church made November 2nd All Souls' Day to honor the dead. It's widely believed today that the church was attempting to replace the Celtic Festival of the Dead with a related church-sanctioned holiday. Easiest way to convert pagans to Christianity is to give them holidays around their own festivals they were already celebrating.
Funny that you mentioned that. Brittany was showing me earlier. There's old elm trees I guess, scattered throughout like England and stuff. So back in the day when like Celts were celebrating their Celtic rituals and like engaging in like their paganism and stuff like that. And you know how with like Celtic mythology and spirituality, there's a lot of worship of like trees and nature and that kind of thing. So I guess the church noticed that these Celtics or like the pagans were worshiping like these elm trees. So like
they cut them all down.
Yeah, basically. They
course.
cut down like a shit ton of them, but then they built churches around like specific ones, and it was like, okay, if you want to worship your trees, that's fine, but you got to come here to the church to do it. And it's like, yeah, but you can find old churches from back in the day that still have these like 400 or thousands of years elm trees still standing or whatever. Because and it's like that's such a shitty thing to do. Like nothing.
Well, that's the easiest way to get people to convert to your religion, I guess, in those times anyway, if you're having a celebration like Samhain, the best thing to do to have them convert to Christianity, you can be a Christian, you just got to celebrate All Saints' Day, and guess what? It happens on Samhain.
Yeah, basically.
You can still do the same stuff, just no drunken debauchery, that's all.
Yeah. Which, that's pretty much what you get for like major religions like that, Christianity, the Crusades. Mm-hmm. Man, like nothing against like the religion or anything, but it'd have been so cool. I can only imagine the different religions that we'll like never even know existed because they were completely wiped out by like the Crusades and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Just makes you wonder like what like parts of history we've lost because like some crazy like traditions or things like that. And man, just makes you wonder. I bet you in the Vatican and the archives, they probably have like some like history of like non-existent like things that are gone like now, but they still have like.
Same probably in the Library of Alexandria.
Oh, that's another thing. That one just I lose sleep over that one.
Just the vast amount of knowledge that
we'll never know. Like.
So All Souls Day was celebrated similarly to Samhain with bonfires, parades, dressing up in costumes as saints, angels, and devils. The All Saints Day celebration was also called All Hallowmas, and the night before it, the traditional night of Samhain in the Celtic religion began to be called All Hallows Eve, and eventually Halloween.
So then it's 3 back-to-back. It's All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and then All Souls Day.
Correct.
Kind of like the trifecta of... And All Souls Day is more or less just to kind of celebrate.
Just a day of celebrating the ones that had passed on.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So then kind of fast forwarding a little bit to how Halloween kind of moved into America. Of course, with America's colonization and a lot of Puritans, which we already covered in the last episode.
Your favorite people.
My favorites, those fucking Puritans.
It's just...
They were not fond of it. They were not fond of celebrating any type of sanctioned religious holidays. So All Saints Day, All Souls Day, any of that stuff was not celebrated at all. And Halloween was extremely limited in colonial New England because of the rigid Protestant belief systems. Halloween was actually more common down our way here in Maryland. Different ethnic groups settled in different places. New England mostly Protestant and Puritans didn't celebrate any of that stuff. Down this way, guess it was more people that were a little more
cool,
yeah,
a little more laid back.
They were, yeah, not as crazy as those Protestants up north.
Just like this podcast would be nothing without your beef against the Protestants. Like,
not the Protestants, the Puritans.
The Puritans, yeah.
I guess they're kind of two sides of the same coin. I don't really know all that much about Protestant beliefs, so if you're a Protestant, nothing against you. So anyways, yeah, more common down here in Maryland in the cool southern colonies. As the beliefs and customs of different European ethnic groups and the American Indians meshed, a distinctly American version of Halloween began to emerge. The first celebrations included play parties, which were public events held to celebrate the harvest. Neighbors would share stories of the dead, tell each other's fortunes. So fortunes again are coming back into this. And then they would do dancing and singing and partying into the late hours of the night. Colonial Halloween festivities also would feature ghost stories and mischief making. And by the middle of the 19th century, annual autumn festivals were common, but Halloween was still not celebrated everywhere yet. In the second half of the 19th century, America was flooded with new immigrants from mostly Ireland due to the potato famine, and pretty much they helped popularize the celebration of Halloween. So, thanks, Irish, for giving us more Halloween, more Guinness. Good old Ireland, man.
God, I could go for a pint.
You could do a pint of Guinness on Halloween.
Should.
In honor of our Irish ancestors and Celts for giving us such a glorious celebration.
I don't have any Irish ancestors.
Sure you do.
I mean, maybe Wallace.
You like potatoes?
Maybe Wallace, but I don't know.
Yeah. Gee, I wonder if you're Irish.
I don't know.
Or Scottish or
I don't know.
Celt of some sort. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm black. I've never seen a black Irish man. They exist. I'm just saying, like I've never seen one.
How many times have you been to Ireland?
Irrelevant.
Yeah, see, there you go. There you go. You don't know them. You don't know what's going on over there. So anyways, borrowing from European traditions, Americans started to dress up in costumes and go house to house asking for food or money, a practice eventually that became known as trick-or-treating. Young women believed that on Halloween they could divine the name or appearance of their future husband by doing tricks with yarn, apple parings, or mirrors.
The next thing I know, Bloody Mary just shows up at my front door.
So I guess with the veil still being thinned, they seem to have thought that you could really do some crazy divination work on Halloween.
Well, didn't good old fashioned Harry Houdini and his obsession with
Good old Harry Houdini.
Good old H-Dooney, but H-D. I bet he was a prick.
I bet he was the nicest dude you could ever want to meet.
No, he gives me like straight up like that confidence.
Over under more racist than Lovecraft.
I don't think he was racist at all.
Okay, then under.
Under? Oh yeah, under. I mean, I could be wrong.
You say he was a prick, so I figured maybe you were implying.
I mean, you could be a prick, and well, not everybody's a prick and racist. Like, there's plenty of. Just the way he portrayed himself.
It was all a show.
In the media.
It was all a show. He had to be the world's greatest
because
magician.
he knew he walked in. He's like, I'm fucking Harry Houdini.
Yeah,
I can make you disappear.
And
I can make, and he would like.
By shooting you in the head.
Like, oh, look at that. All you did was move your hands and now your balls are gone, bro. Like, because I'm Harry fucking Houdini, bitch. Like, and you look down and your balls are gone. You're like, oh, God.
Oh,
no.
Harry, what are you done?
And he's like, look behind your ear. And like, you just pull out a jar and they're like in a jar. Like, because, you know, it was the 1920s. We put everything in jars back then. So it makes complete sense. So it gives me this vibe that he was just like a complete jerk because he knew he knew what he was about. He's Harry fucking Houdini. But
okay,
he hated because in the 1920s there was the whole the push for mediums and seances and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he was convinced that they were all shams. Because he was like a master illusionist. He was a master, like, you know, a magician and all that. And he could walk in a room. He went on this like vendetta, basically going to seances, trying to disprove like you're full of shit. He would just
make stuff up, yeah.
And then like just like they would like be like the table shaking and like, no, that's that guy over there. Like you're full of shit. Like it's not. So he actually, I think, dies on Halloween.
Yes.
And I think for the next like 10 years, his wife. Like one of his last dying wishes was, you know.
Well, he pretty much told her, like, hey, have a seance every year on Halloween at this location. And if I can come back from the dead, this is where I will be. So just be here and I will be there too if I can do it. And then she never got any contact from him, unfortunately. That would have been cool. That would have been like the greatest trick ever done. No questions asked. But yeah, they would also try to divinate.
Divine.
So they would take like chestnuts or walnuts or something like that, and they have four of them or something, and you would be like, this walnut's for Gary, and this walnut is for Chad, and this walnut is for Benjamin, and this walnut's for Nick, and throw them into the fire, and whichever one burned the longest, that was like, oh, that's the one that's supposed to be my husband. It's like, sure it is. Sure it is.
It's like the very next day.
Go to bed, Amanda. You're drunk. You're drunk on fermented cider again.
Very next day. Did you hear Chad got engaged to Ashley? No, that's not right. He's supposed to be married to me. The burning chestnut said so.
The what?
I'm sorry. What'd you do with that shotgun?
Where did you get that?
Where'd you? We have one of those.
They're not going to be invented for another 20 years.
Yeah, just some wild shit.
Weird traditions like that. Yeah, I don't know where that like idea came from.
I mean, a lot of these like traditions though probably started from just bizarre shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it had to have come from the old Samhain rituals of the Celts doing divination things, but
and those are only the ones we know about too. Like I'm sure there's like other ones that like are just lost with time. It's like you take 3 apples, you arrange them in a triangle, and you pee in the center.
Okay, then what?
You look in this mirror.
All right.
And say the alphabet backwards.
Which one? Which alphabet? The Times New Roman.
The Times New Roman alphabet. Okay. If you see a reflection in that mirror by the time you get to the beginning of the alphabet,
that's your one true love. But if you see a skeleton, that means you're going to die. And if you don't see anything, uh-oh. That means your crops are going to fail.
The only way you can get out of this is if you eat one of the apples that you peed on.
But you can't pee on all the apples. The pea has to decide.
What the fuck does that mean?
And if you only see your reflection in the mirror, well, then guess what, friend? You're going to be alone the rest of your life. With only yourself to blame.
Yeah, just these like off the wall. It's like, I'm sure there's like crazy shit out there like that just makes no damn sense. Like, wait, what apple am I supposed to pee on?
Just pee in the middle, man. Whichever the pea gets on the apple. That's the one.
Like just crazy shit like that. So I'm kind of glad some of those did die out because I need
just for the record, there is no information on peeing on apples. That was a Nick thing. That was a Nick scenario.
Completely made up. I'm just saying, these scenarios.
If you go pee on apples, that's on you.
Yeah, we do not condone
any
ceremonial pissing of apples.
That's not why they called them golden delicious.
No, it's not.
Oh Jesus. Anyway. So the American tradition of trick-or-treating supposedly dates back to pretty much All Souls Day parades in England. During the festivities, poor citizens would beg for food, and families would give them pastries called soul cakes in return for their promise to pray for the family's dead relatives. The distribution of soul cakes was encouraged by the church as a way to replace the ancient practice of leaving food and wine for roaming spirits. The practice, which was referred to as going a-souling, was eventually taken up by children who would visit the houses in the neighborhood and be given ale, food, and money. I like that the children are getting booze for Halloween.
Oh, of course. We should make
some soul cakes and give them to kids on Halloween. I don't think parents really let you do that anymore.
No. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen? Like walking up to a house on Halloween? Or what's the weirdest thing you've ever gotten on Halloween?
We'll talk about that in the Halloween nostalgia episode.
Okay.
I do have a story for that. So
sure. Okay. That's what's up.
So yeah, trick-or-treating comes from pretty much going a-souling, getting soul cakes, getting trinkets, treats, ale, food, money. I think pretty much Great Depression era is when they were dressing up in those horrific costumes. Terrifying ass costumes. So people didn't know who was begging. They didn't know who the poor people were and stuff like that. Those costumes are stuff of nightmares, man. Those homemade ones from back. Oh gosh,
Like,
how's that not been a horror movie? I'm surprised there hasn't been like a Halloween movie based on like 1935 Halloween with one of these freakish homemade costumes.
what the fuck is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's got 3 eyes.
Yeah, it was to ward away evil spirits. Again, that's where it all comes from. And you make the scariest costumes you can make to ward away evil, so no spirits can attack you on Halloween.
Let's bring that back.
Yeah,
Like,
let's turn into spirits and haunt kids.
I mean, that too. I was saying bring back the costumes or like the homemade terrifying costumes like that.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm down to give that a try next year.
That should be like, let's make these like terrifying 1920s, 1930s costumes and stuff. So then, all right, so that's going on during like the 20s and 30s and all that. When does Halloween start becoming more like commercialized? Like big companies, hey, we could make some money off of this and actually it starts becoming like more mainstream.
Yeah, it pretty much becomes more mainstream by the 1950s. At that point, Halloween had become less about defending yourself against evil and thinking of dead spirits and dead people. And they kind of turned it into more of a community-based event. So they had town leaders help limit vandalism, and Halloween evolved into a holiday directed mostly at the young people, mostly at kids, due to the high number of young children during the 50s baby boom. So they would have, Halloween parties in your neighborhoods, civic centers, classrooms, or wherever else where they could just kind of come together as a community. And really kind of the boom starts in the 50s. And then, as time goes on in the 50s and you become more of the standard television home and the American dream kind of family, that's when the costumes went from the stuff of nightmares of freakish ghosts and witches to now people are dressing up as Adam West Batman and and stuff like that. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was kind of like going back a little bit to like 30s and 40s. Halloween at some point had become dangerous in America. A lot of people were. It was like, they used to call it all, Devil's Night or Mischief Night.
Well, that's what. So I thought originally that's what kind of the whole trick or treating thing came from.
Yeah,
was like,
I think it was kind of both ways. Trick or treating, one was helping deflect the vandalism and the debauchery of Halloween, and it also tied into the tradition of giving soul cakes out. So it kind of worked both ways. Nobody was giving out soul cakes anymore. They were giving candy away instead of that. So yeah, it's kind of both.
Okay.
Kind of both.
God, I bet you Halloween in the 1950s was wild.
I bet it was lit. I bet you had like a bunch of like girls dressed in like cat costumes, and you had men dressed up in Zorro costumes, and I guess Zorro would have been pretty big then, and Lone Ranger and stuff like that.
Because I guess that's where that started in the 50s.
Like those old time radio shows. I guess you could just imagine what they look like.
Like, hey, that guy's John Wayne. Hey, that guy's John Wayne.
Oh, that's actually John Wayne.
That really is John Wayne.
I'd like to know what like the biggest costumes were in the 1950s. We should look that up.
No, I thought you'd never ask, my friend. All right. So 1950.
Well, we don't have to do it by year.
Oh no, we're doing it by. Norma Desmond from Sunset Boulevard.
Never seen it. Never heard of
it. 1951 was Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, okay, that checks out. I guess that book would have been pretty popular then.
1952 would have been Singing in the Rain. 53 would have been Peter Pan. I don't know like what the actual like validity of this is or whatever. It's
what is the source on this? Probably cowboys, like the cowboys and Indians and stuff like that are probably super popular.
Rebel Without a Cause, so like James Dean with like the Marilyn Monroe. And
yeah, of course. Still popular.
1962. No, people going as JFK.
Oh, jeez.
The Rolling Stones in 65. Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you probably had a bunch of Trekkies running around. Bunch of I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Elvis Presley. Yeah.
Who would ever want to dress up as him?
Star Wars in the 70s.
Yeah. Then 80s was probably like a lot more pop culture stuff.
Indiana Jones.
Ghostbusters.
Daisy Duke.
Oh, yeah.
RoboCop.
RoboCop. I think that I wanted to be RoboCop one year. Even that movie came out way before my time.
I love those movies.
I think that I wanted to be RoboCop one year, and I never was.
There's a new RoboCop game. I don't know if it's come out yet or not, or if it's whatever, it's currently in the works. It looks sick. It's like a first person, and you're basically him. But remember like Skyrim going around interacting with all the NPCs, basically that. But you have like all the sensors and stuff, so you can like kind of see like people like bullshitting or whatever. Like, oh, you're lying. You see like their heart rate go up or whatever. You start shooting.
Yeah, you start blasting.
Yeah, guilty.
So yeah, the 80s is pretty much where the pop culture stuff takes off. It's also where we get the whole poisoning of the candy scare and the razor blades and the
growing up, I remember having instances of like my parents talking about that, but what happened like to start all this? Because it literally like 1 year it was just like, yeah, you need to check your candy. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
So pretty much what I know is there was a very localized incident where a dad, I think in Texas, poisoned like a couple of pixie sticks.
Okay.
And somehow his son ended up being one of the kids that he poisoned and killing. And that was like the news article of the decade that started that, where man poisons candy on Halloween night, feeds it to his son, and blah, blah, blah. And then,
which I want to know,
I think there was another instance where some people had tampered with Tylenol or something and put that in some candy or something along those lines, gave it to some kids. They don't really know what happened. I don't think there was any deaths, but they also didn't know who actually did it. But it was very localized instances where they knew what happened, they knew where it came from, and it was like that one thing. But of course, the media blows it up,
sensational,
goes out, and then parents are like, "Oh, well, we're not going to let our kids go trick or treating because who knows? It could be poison candy out there." The razor blades, I don't know where the razor blades came from. I don't know how that became a thing.
It could have just been like you said, localized thing, like instances of like, I mean, it's not crazy. I think it was last year or like the year before, there was some bust or whatever, but it was like fentanyl that looked like candy. And that was, of course, that got in the news. It didn't blow up like the way that the scare was in the 80s or whatever. But even nowadays, there's instances of candy that looks, that could be potentially deadly. I don't know if it ever got past that. I don't think it did because
there was another, like, once marijuana drug, like gummies and stuff like that started becoming popular. That was like the new scares. Like, nobody's giving your kids their marijuana gummies. Those are too expensive to be just giving it to
not
kids.
On purpose.
Yeah,
there was a pissed off stoner that wait a minute. If these gummies were here,
there's a kid dressed up as like
he just looks across the street and then like there's a kid just like next to the dumpster.
Just tripping balls. But yeah, so those instances just kind of came and went, but the 80s was like the height. And then, like you said, growing up, we kind of caught the tail end of it. My mom would go through our trick-or-treat bags and make sure there was nothing out of place. And usually, more often than not, the homemade stuff would get thrown out just in case. But other than that, I don't remember it being a really big thing in my...
Who makes homemade candy nowadays?
Well, it wasn't like homemade candy. It would just be like baked goods or like cookies or, they was like wrapped in little Halloween bags,
Sure.
Or caramel apples, or I think I got a couple of those ones, or not a couple of them in one trip, but like over the years, I think I probably got a couple of them.
Oh, Taylor, here you go. Here's a handful of caramel apples.
Just bring the treat bucket home. It's like you dump it out on the floor, and you got your Kit Kats, your Reese's, your Hershey bars, and then 17 caramel apples.
Just like they're not even wrapped. He just throws like just raw caramel apples and like oh god, there's freaking nuts all over my Reese's.
Dog cheese.
Oh Christ. I don't like caramel apples. Fuck caramel apples.
What?
Not a fan.
I can. Oh man, I can agree on candy apples. I don't like candy apples, but caramel apples.
It's the same thing, right?
No.
Okay, what's the difference?
Candy apple.
Wise guy.
I don't know what candy apples are made of, but it's not caramel.
Like I'll eat like apples like dipped in caramel. That's good.
Yeah, that's a caramel apple.
But what's the one with the stick? The nuts?
I mean, you can do that with a caramel apple, but Candy apples are whole apples covered in a sugar candy coating with a stick inserted as a handle.
Maybe that's what
I mean, they're kind of the same thing in sense of what they look like, but one's sugar-coated candy apples and the other one's caramel.
Okay.
And you can dip them in nuts if you want to. You can do that with both of them. They're similar in that sense where you got a stick and they're... I don't like biting into an apple, just raw dogging it like that. I would much rather prefer it be cut up into slices and dip in a caramel sauce.
Oh, no, man. Honeycrisp apples?
Yeah.
Crush those every day.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. I like a regular apple, sure. But when it's covered in a hard candy and you're trying to, like, it just doesn't work.
Maybe the candy, the caramel one. I think that's what I was
Caramel, you just kind
of.
of like, you just kind of lick it.
Get all sensual with it.
Melts it a little bit.
Yeah. No, caramel, okay, I can mess with those. It's the candied ones that I'm thinking
I don't like
of,
candy
with
apples
sugar
either.
and like with the pecans.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got over the course of Halloween years, I believe I got some caramel apples and baked treats and stuff like that got thrown out. But never any razor blades in the Snickers bars or anything like that.
Where were we at? It was like a small handful of times where my dad was like, all right, let's test this and open it up.
That sounds more like it was the dad tax than anything.
The dad. Yeah, no, he did a couple of times, like cut open the candy and rip it open.
Do you have a dad tax scenario?
I have a dad tax with him every day. Like,
What's the-
I see you got yourself some nuggets. So dad tax.
What's the Halloween tax?
I
You
go.
just look through it and see what you want.
Nah, I go after the Reese's.
Yeah, my man.
Reese's. That's where it's
My
at.
man. The Reese's are the top, man. Reese's pumpkins.
You can't tell. Nobody can disagree. I mean, they can disagree.
Somebody out there is going to disagree.
But hands down, the best candy on Halloween night is Reese's.
Yeah. Followed closely by Kit Kats, for me personally.
I would say Reese's, Snickers,
Okay.
Milky Ways.
Interesting top three.
Wait, no. I would take what are the peanuts? The paydays?
Okay.
I would take a payday before I take a Milky Way.
What about a Baby Ruth? Do they still make Baby Ruths?
They do make Baby Ruths. I saw one the other day and I was like, man, I haven't had one of those in a while.
I haven't even thought about a Baby Ruth until just right now.
Yeah. But I prefer payday over Baby Ruths.
Well, that checks out. That checks out. I'll give you that one.
It's just like the salty goodness and the nuggets and the...
See, when we were kids, I don't want to get too deep into this because I really want to save it for the Halloween nostalgia episodes. But like when we were kids, they didn't have the good candy like they have now, like the Take Fives, the Reese's Fast Breaks.
Oh, the Fast Break was a game changer.
Oh my god! You're telling me? You're telling me?
Game changer.
It was a super game changer. The Fast Breaks when they came out, my gosh!
I got so fat.
And the Take Fives were even worse because they were like caramel and pretzel and peanut butter and chocolate. And I was like,
I got even fatter.
and now they have like the Kit Kats have different Halloween themes. Now they have the Witch's Brew Kit Kat that kind of tastes like a Rice Krispie treat.
Nah.
Delicious.
Nah, I lost
Delicious.
weight.
Don't care what you say, they're delicious. Now they have the Ghost Toast Kit Kats, which
that
is like a
French
cinnamon. It's a
toast?
cinnamon toast like crunch
Okay.
Kit Kat.
I can mess with that.
But yeah, 80s is where it kind of popped off, and now it's you also had with the release of maybe my favorite Halloween movie of all time, Halloween. 1978, John Carpenter's released Halloween, the only movie up to that point based on Halloween, and it just blows this whole thing open.
Wasn't it called something else like the Babysitter Killer?
It was supposedly
like
called the Babysitter Murders. I don't know if there's ever been any actual confirmation by anybody that worked on it that it was like, it's kind of ambiguous.
Sure.
It's like they wanted to sound like they were like, oh yeah, we were going to call it the Babysitter Murders, and then somebody was like, oh, let's just call it Halloween instead. How crazy is that worked out? Instead of it just being like, yeah, we had an idea, we were going to call this movie Halloween, and that's what it was. They wanted to have a story behind it, but I don't think anybody really knows definitively.
Sure.
But yeah, so anyways, the movie gets made called Halloween and kind of opens the door for not only like horror movies being synonymous with Halloween, but just like holiday themed movies in general. So, oh man, nothing better than watching John Carpenter's Halloween on Halloween night for me.
As far as like cheesy, campy Halloween movies go,
I'll be clear, there is nothing cheesy or campy about John Carpenter's Halloween.
when I say cheesy or campy, I'm referring to like how over the top those movies were.
Some could be, for sure. Some could be. Halloween 2 is when it started, like Friday the 13th and stuff started turning those movies into gore fests.
Yeah.
But the original Halloween has almost no blood in it at all.
Really? I've actually never seen.
You've never seen Halloween?
Not from start to finish. I remember having it as a kid. I remember we had the DVD of it, and
yeah, we're gonna have to watch that.
And but the original, or no, we had Halloween 2.0.
H2O. Halloween 20 years later. Yeah.
Is that what I remember? We had that
H20,
one.
yeah.
H20. We had that one. But as far as the original Halloween, never seen it.
Wow. Yeah, we're gonna have to fix that, buddy.
And it's just, he's dead or is he alive or both?
It depends on which timeline you're looking at. The original Halloween, he's just a guy, and then from there it's like a choose your own adventure. So
okay.
I won't dig into the timelines of the Halloween movies, but
we could do a whole episode on just
easily, because you have Halloween 2, Halloween 4, 5, 6, I think.
Why'd you skip 3?
And because Halloween 3 doesn't have Michael Myers in it. That's not part of the continuity. Halloween 3 is awesome on its own. And if they would have just called it Season of the Witch without calling it Halloween 3, probably would have been one of the best movies of all time.
Oh, is that the one you were telling me about with the demented toy company or whatever? And okay.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
I'll take your word for it, buddy.
That's the epitome of a cheesy 80s campy horror movie, and it's glorious. And it's glorious. Back when they weren't afraid to have a movie end on a cliffhanger. It's super ambiguous. You leave it up to the viewer to decide how the movie ends. Don't do the work for them. Don't give them what they want. Let them decide what happens.
Taylor he's very passionate on this episode. you go to the store, you give my fucking cookies, you don't take down my costumes before July. And then, damn it, make good fucking movies.
Hey, it is what it is. And then you have the other version of the new trilogy that just came out, the Halloween 78, and then you have Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. Those are a continuity.
Because didn't Jamie Lee Curtis reprise her role in those films? Okay.
Yeah, same with H2O and Halloween Resurrections. So there's 2 different kind of main timelines, but yeah, it's messy. It's real messy. And then the Rob Zombie movies are a thing on their own.
I don't get the hype behind Jamie Lee Curtis.
She was great as Laurie Strode in...
No, I'm just saying it's
Halloween
why she was this iconic sex symbol back in the day. I don't.
She was the first Scream Queen.
Is that what it was?
She was the first final girl. Yeah, one of the first final girls. Yeah.
Her and Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver, I don't get it.
I don't get the hype behind
I watched. I'll admit this on the podcast right now. I watched Ghostbusters for the first time a month ago.
Yeah,
and.
I forgot she's in that.
She is in it. She's Bill Murray's main love interest. And I'm like, Bill Murray, this girl is haunting to look at. What are you?
Damn, freaking savage. Just roasting
I mean, she's a fine actress. Don't get me wrong. But
yeah, she's great in Alien. I love her for.
She is not an attractive woman.
Ripley in Alien, but I was. Brittany, I was talking to Brittany about it, and Brittany said the same. I don't get it. I don't understand.
It's like the Dark Knight movies where you have Maggie Gyllenhaal, and you're just you can never convince me that Bruce Wayne and Harvey Dent were fighting over Maggie Gyllenhaal, because that is a squished piece of gum ass looking girl.
Jesus Christ! You need to edit that out. Oh my God.
No, I'm leaving that in. I hope she hears it. I hope Maggie Gyllenhaal listens to this podcast. Sigourney Weaver too, damn it.
How dare you get on screen and try to convince
people you're hot.
Have you lost your mind?
There's not a reality that Bruce Wayne is after Maggie Gyllenhaal. There's not a reality that happens. Anyways.
No alternate DC universe timeline. Were you going to tell me
Darkest Night?
Were you going to tell me that's okay?
Maggie Gyllenhaal is the equivalent of one of those 1930s Halloween costumes.
That kid's a werewolf. That kid's a Picasso. Who's that? That's Maggie Gyllenhaal. Oh my god! Oh Jesus Christ! No. It's true. You remember? I remember when The Dark Knight came out. We went to school the next day, and that legit was like the first thing he commented on. He's like, bro.
Because you had Katie Holmes in the first movie. You had Katie Holmes. She was fine. She's all right. And then you go to Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Oh my god.
My issue with that is like he walks in to the club with like, or flies into on like his penthouse with like 6 beautiful women, absolute showstoppers, and you're gonna sit there and tell me that Maggie Gyllenhaal's the one he's there? Get the fuck out of here, Chris Nolan, you bum ass.
I haven't seen her in anything else.
Good.
Oh my god.
I would have thought that this Halloween episode would turn into a Maggie Gyllenhaal roast session. Any chance I get to roast Maggie Gyllenhaal, I'm going to take it.
I don't hate the woman.
No, I hate her. I don't know her. But she might be a beautiful person inside, but on the outside, boy. Ugh. But yeah, so anyways, Jamie Lee Curtis was the original Scream Queen.
Okay.
Sigourney Weaver was like, I guess, a horror icon. I guess I get that to an extent, but yeah.
But she wasn't like, it wasn't a slasher. Yeah, it wasn't like.
It was a horror movie though still.
But they're so good.
Yeah.
You've seen all those, right?
I haven't seen all of them.
Well, at least like the first one.
The first and second one.
Oh, they're so good. I love those movies. That was like the first horror movie I actually watched. It was Alien.
Okay, gotcha.
When I was a kid.
I was terrified to watch horror movies as a kid. The first one I ever watched was Freddy vs. Jason.
Well, I wasn't allowed.
And that's not even a horror movie, really.
I wasn't allowed to watch them though. But for some reason, like I wasn't allowed to watch like the Screams and like the Michael Myers and the Jasons and stuff. But for some reason,
Alien's fine.
But for some reason, like Alien and Predator, like those were okay.
Well, Predator was kind of more action, I think. Action.
I mean, yeah, I guess like it's such a classic, iconic movie too. But
I don't have time to bleed.
You're bleeding. I ain't got time to bleed. Yeah, I love this movie.
I like that meme where it's like, I forget the guy's name, but it's like his way of calming down is dry shaving. It's like, Jesus. Well, yeah. So now Halloween, fast forward to modern day, is I think it's bigger than it's ever been with the help of social media and stuff. It's like really feel like Halloween's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger every year. And the costumes are getting better and better and better every year. And it's more accessible than it's ever been. But nobody decorates their houses anymore. Like, what's going on with that? Why is that going by the wayside that people aren't decorating their homes for Halloween? You used to be able, when I was a kid, like you could walk down the street and like
everybody,
80% of the houses were
everybody
decorated.
Had something.
Something. Now it's like either like, because you guys decorated the hell out of your house and it looks awesome.
But like no one else in the street.
But nobody else on the street has decorated anything. Yeah. And my house is the same way. I've got like all my Halloween decorations are out, and everybody else on my street doesn't have anything except for like the one guy 2 houses down. He has a couple of things out, but walking around the neighborhood and stuff, there's nothing. I wonder why that is.
I mean, we're like the youngest family on this.
Do you think that's what it is? The older folks don't want to decorate, or is it?
Okay, if you keep going in the neighborhood, yeah. Like the newer homes, like 2 streets up, most of those are like decorated.
Oh, really? You think it's a young people thing? They don't decorate their houses? Or do you think it was like a tradition that's just kind of going by the wayside?
I think people are just becoming more antisocial, honestly.
Well, probably.
I think with
social
the rise
media, of trunk or treats and stuff like that, nobody decorates their houses. They just decorate their trunks or whatever.
Like, maybe that's part of it. But I just think with social media, people are becoming more like isolated.
Yeah.
And just like less social. So maybe
all that hard work we did back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s to make Halloween a community event. Now it's just a social media thing, you think?
I mean, you still have like all the Halloween parades and stuff like that. Like those aren't going away.
Yeah. They have one in Edinburgh. That's like the Samhain celebration.
I told Brittany, I was like, we got to go.
Man, that would be incredible.
We have to go.
They do the whole like fire or day versus night and winter versus summer kind of thing. A big fire and ice festival and stuff like that.
I just want to go to Edinburgh just for the sake of it being
Just for the
Edinburgh.
ghosts. Just for the ghosts.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to go to Edinburgh Castle.
Yeah.
And
Then you have the Greenwich Village Parade up in New York that apparently is a huge event.
Wow.
Which would be pretty cool to go to. We talked about it last week, but Salem has a big Halloween haunted happenings event first weekend of October.
Yeah.
I don't know any other major Halloween parades, but almost every town has a Halloween parade. But yeah, just houses and stuff like that. They're not decorated, but yeah, at least the parades are still going on.
Yeah.
Don't let Halloween die in your neighborhood, people. Decorate your houses. Turn on your porch lights. Let your kids run out and get all the candy they can possibly get.
Oh yeah, we even with like trunk or treat and everything, and yeah, we take around and let him like see all the candy and stuff, and
You let him see the candy.
yeah, we let him see.
You don't let him get it.
You know, he's not allowed to have it. He can look at it. That's about it.
Yeah,
I mean, it was pretty lit last year.
that's good.
There was a pretty decent turnout. We, like I said, most of the houses, because they kind of just built like a newer development in the back of the neighborhood, so most of it like took place around there, and then like 2 streets up. I think where we're at is kind of like the tail end of the neighborhood,
of the
so
line.
we kind of get the scattered, the remnants or whatever.
The dedicated ones.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's interesting here. What about jack-o'-lanterns? Where does that come from?
We haven't talked about jack-o'-lanterns?
Yeah.
How about that? Jack-o'-lanterns came about mostly back during the festivals of Samhain. They would carve faces and stuff into turnips and put little candles and stuff inside of them to help guide spirits to the afterlife. I think that was the main catalyst of starting that.
Mm-hmm.
It was also a way to ward evil away from your home. And that tradition kind of just carried over to America, and it became a pumpkin because pumpkins were an easy squash to grow. It was just
That makes sense.
yeah. It was easy to carve, easy to, I mean, you could grow a lot of them. One of the stories of the jack-o'-lantern could have been originated from an Irish legend, which first appeared in print in the 19th century about a man nicknamed Stingy Jack. According to the story, Stingy Jack invited the devil to have a drink with him. True to his name, Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for his drink, so he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin that Jack could use to buy their drinks. Once the devil did so, Jack decided to keep the money and put it into his pocket next to a silver cross, which prevented the devil from changing back into his original form. Jack eventually freed the devil under the condition that he would not bother Jack for 1 year, and that should Jack die, he would not claim his soul. The next year, Jack again tricked the devil into climbing into a tree to pick a piece of fruit. While he was up in the tree, Jack carved a sign of the cross into the tree's bark so that the devil could not come down, until the devil promised Jack not to bother him for 10 more years. Soon after, Jack died. As the legend goes, God would not allow such an unsavory figure into heaven. The devil, upset by the trick Jack had played on him and keeping his word not to claim his soul, would not allow Jack into hell. So he sent Jack off into the dark night with only a burning coal to light his way. Jack put the coal into a carved-out turnip and has been roaming the earth with it ever since. The Irish began to refer to this ghostly figure as the Jack of the Lantern, and then simply Jack-o'-lantern.
He sounds like a badass. The devil sounds like a dumbass. and God's just doing his thing.
Guys, yeah, he's like, yeah, I don't think you really deserve to be here, so get back down there.
I feel like God missed out on an opportunity there.
Yeah,
Like you got street smarts.
Yeah.
I could use you in my army.
Yeah. That's one version of how we have jack-o'-lanterns today.
I like that version. That version's cool.
Otherwise, it's just to ward away evil spirits that might be coming to your doorstep. They see the scary faces in your squash. And they're like,
That seems to be like
not this house. I don't get a good feeling about this house.
Seems like a reoccurring theme. Let's make evil faces to scare off ghosts.
Yeah, because you can't be scared of the things that are scary if you're the thing that's scary.
I suppose. I guess that makes sense.
But yeah, I think that's going to pretty much cover it for this episode on the history of Halloween. As per usual, you can find us on Instagram at Shadows and Sightings Pod, Facebook, Shadows and Sightings, a Paranormal Podcast. Send us an email, shadowsandsightings@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your Halloween stories, like to hear your Halloween traditions. What was your favorite thing to do on Halloween as a kid or now? What's your favorite Halloween movie? What else?
Your Halloween legends.
Your legends, your ghost stories. again, we always want to hear your ghost stories. We want to hear your cryptid sightings. We want to hear your experiences with the paranormal. But we still have our shop up on Printful. So if you want to show off your Shadows and Sightings fandom, you can do that and help support us in the process. Just tell your friends about the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Boost us in the algorithm a little bit so more people can hear us talk about nonsense and spooky things for a little while. Also, if you know who Maggie Gyllenhaal is, or if you can contact her personally. I'm just kidding. Yeah, don't tell her. Don't tell her we roasted her and like halfway through this episode. Actually do. I don't care. I don't care if she knows. But yeah, I think that's it. We only got a couple more weeks till Halloween. I'm kind of bummed. Kind of bummed out. It feels like it's coming up so fast, even though it just started, and then it's going to be gone.
True,
just like that.
But now But then we'll be getting into some of like the holiday spooky cryptids and Krampus.
Krampus.
I fucking love Krampus.
But thanks for listening to Shadows and Sightings. We appreciate all the support that you guys have shown us throughout this. We're looking forward to covering some more Halloween stuff before the spooky season ends. But then we're going to get back into some Christmassy stuff. So stick around for that. Hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. And as always, we'll haunt y'all next time when we talk about all things spooky.